costs for the entire project. After being generated, power goes to the transmission lines for delivery to the pumping plant at the Delta, as well as to the northern and central California customers. There are some benefits from project features like Shasta Dam, whose value can hardly be expressed in dollars and cents. These are dividends in recreation, outdoor fun and relaxation, for people who are nearly all drawn to open water, as if it exerted some irresistible spell. So the impounded water serves swimmers, boaters, campers, vacationers, and Sunday excursionists, as well as the essential purposes of irrigation, flood control, and power generation. It is the principal job of Keswick Dam, 9 miles downstream from Shasta, to create a re-regulating reservoir, or afterbay, which will absorb the fluctuations in water releases from Shasta Dam that are required for power generation. Keswick Reservoir takes up the slack, and a regulated flow of water is released to the river through the 75,000 kilowatt powerhouse. In spite of the great benefits derived from Keswick Dam, its existence presented a serious problem to certain travelers in the river. These were the migrant salmon and steelhead trout, which instinctively go up the freshwater stream of their birth, all the way from the sea, to spawn. Because of the dam, they could go no farther. The engineers took care of the situation by designing a fish trap and a fish elevator. The bucket lifts the fish to the top of the dam, where a tank truck is waiting to haul them 30 miles downstream to Coleman Fish Hatchery for spawning. Several rivers and streams join the Sacramento on its southward course, and one of the most important of these tributaries is the American River, which comes in at the city of Sacramento. Fed by mountain streams from the high Sierra, the American, tractable as it appears now, was always a flood menace. Old homes built high off the ground in Sacramento lowlands, only a few feet above sea level, and an elaborate levee system attest to the regularity of flood conditions that always existed. The American River was tied in with the Central Valley Project through flood control, and Folsom Dam, 20 miles upstream from the capital, was authorized for construction by the Army Corps of Engineers as a flood control measure. It was designed as a multiple-purpose dam, however, and upon completion was transferred by Congress to the Bureau of Reclamation for operation as part of the Central Valley Project. The reservoir water level is carefully regulated through controlled releases to the river, especially during the flood season, to provide storage for heavy runoff. But in any season, the lake and recreation area acts as a lure for water sports enthusiasts from Sacramento and beyond. More serious jobs for waters that attract picnickers and boaters are irrigation and other water services, as well as power generation. The power plant has a capacity of 162,000 kilowatts and is tied into the Central Valley Project electrical system through the 20-mile-long Folsom, Alberta transmission line to the Alberta switchyard, where it augments the power generated in the Shasta area. The re-regulating unit below Folsom is Nimbus Dam, with its own small power plant. Here on the American River, as on the Sacramento, the salmon and steelhead come on their way to ancestral spawning grounds. The migrants, guided by a rack that blocks the river, ascend the fish ladder, which leads to a holding pond. From which they are taken and the eggs removed for the spawning operation. The eggs, tens of millions of them each season, are placed in troughs in the hatchery. Minute salmon, after the eggs have hatched, appear to be jet-propelled. The young fish grow rapidly in the hatchery, then as fingerlings they are released back into the river for their journey to the ocean. This is the multiple-use concept of water resource development, which includes preserving salmon and steelhead resources for the future, as well as harnessing the river for flood control, power generation, and water supply service. Control of the American aids in control of the Sacramento as it moves down toward the Delta area. The Delta is a lowland plain jigsawed into a maze of islands by a great complex of rivers and channels, a large part of which are contained by levees. One of the initial problems of the Central Valley Project was to ensure a constant supply of high-quality water here at the point where it was to be taken for pumping into the canal that would transfer it south. After careful studies, it was decided to create a channel near Walnut Grove to divert Sacramento River water to the pumping plant. This bypass is the Delta Cross Channel. Waters entering the channel include controlled releases from Shasta Lake and from Folsom Reservoir. In the Sacramento headquarters of the Central Valley Project, critical control is maintained over all waters of the system. Water that enters the cross channel under direction from this central point moves down the channels 50 miles to the Tracy pumping plant, which lifts it to the head of the Delta-Mendota Canal. At the intake channel, the fish find the project facilities to be a problem again. For while it is another case of the big ones getting away, the small fry would be drawn downstream and into the pumps. The problem was solved by project engineers and fishery biologists who designed an ingenious device for collecting small fish from the channel. Based on the apparent ability of fish to sense an obstruction as they drift downstream with the current, a screen of closely spaced vertical louvers directs them away from the main flow and into underwater conduits which deliver them to us. In specially refrigerated and aerated trucks, the fingerlings are hauled downstream and released a safe distance from the intake. The Tracy pumping plant, which is thus isolated from the fish population of the Delta, is called the heartbeat of the Central Valley Project. Here, 6 powerful pumps, which working together could fill a 100,000-gallon tank in 3 seconds, lift the water a mile uphill to the head of the canal, 200 feet higher than the inlet channel. Power to spin the 6 22,500 horsepower motors that raise the waters destined to replace San Joaquin River flow far to the south comes in at the nearby Tracy switchyard, load center of the Central Valley Power Transmission System. Surplus power is sold to public agencies, largely federal establishments, irrigation districts, and municipalities, in accordance with reclamation law. But the first job for the energy created by faraway falling waters is to hoist the same waters, after their journey down the rivers, up to the head of the Delta-Mendota Canal. This is an impressive man-made stream 117 miles long and designed to slope southward 3 inches to the mile. There is an irrigation turnout on an average of every half mile to serve the arid farmlands on the west side of the valley. But the bulk of the water continues on southward, and as it nears Mendota, it parallels one of the old irrigation canals heading north from the pool. Each is so carefully engineered on its slope that the water in the 2 gravity canals can run in opposite directions. At Mendota Pool, water that was stored in Shasta Lake, mingled with water from Folsom Reservoir and other North Valley runoff, comes in to replace the flow of the San Joaquin and feed irrigation canals, many of which have been in use since before the turn of the century. From the pool, water is also taken for the benefit of millions of air travelers, the wild ducks and geese that come to the nearby 15-square-mile Mendota Wildfowl Management Area, maintained by the state on the Pacific Flyway, the traditional route taken by migrating game birds. The water rights of riverside farmers along the San Joaquin below Bryant Dam are satisfied by releases from Millerton Lake, the reservoir created by Bryant Dam, which not only stores water to irrigate 1 million acres in the southern sector of the valley, but provides much-needed flood control. Here again, the creation of a body of water where none existed before has also created a water playground for boaters, fishermen, swimmers, and for the people who just bring a picnic lunch to enjoy in the open air. But the engineers and planners of the Central Valley Project created the lake in the dry foothills primarily to feed a new river that snakes down Southern Valley through productive but thirsty farmland. The soil was fertile, but water was scarce. The streams were thin in the heat, and in years of lean rainfall, the rivers dried into the sand.